Morning of September 19th, 1939. The sky over Warsaw dawns gray and oppressive, laden with black smoke clouds rising like ghosts from burning buildings, while the incessant roar of German artillery makes the air vibrate like a distant war drum, echoing through potholed streets and piercing weary bones. Polish soldiers with soot-streaked faces and salty sweat stinging their eyes huddle in makeshift trenches, feeling the damp ground tremble under nearby impacts. The acrid smell of gunpowder and charred flesh clogging exhausted nostrils, as the 10th day of bombardment turns the capital into a cauldron of paralyzing terror, where each explosion slices the silence like a cold blade in the chest. As Poland agonizes under the weight of the invasion, September 19th marks the peak of German brutality. With Warsaw besieged and bleeding, its defenders refusing to yield to the relentless logic of war machines. Public parks, once green havens of peace, now serve as makeshift cemeteries, where the sticky touch of fresh earth over hasty coffins contrasts with the stench of decomposition hanging in the humid air. And families feel their hearts tighten as they pass mass graves. Silent grief mingling with the buzz of planes ripping the sky like hungry predators. German troops, advancing prematurely into the suburbs, face fierce resistance. Panzer tanks immobilized by rubble barricades and anti-tank fire, their smoking hulks belching hot oil and twisted metal, while captured prisoners feel the icy dread of interrogations under the merciless glare of lanterns. Cold sweat trickling down backs and damp cells. In the city's heart, a German bomber unleashes its deadly payload on a house near a headquarters turned provisional prison for 90 captured Germans from the previous night. The deafening impact tearing the air and burying 27 of them in rubble. The echo of muffled screams mixing with choking dust that irritates dry throats, leaving a Polish policeman in his trembling diary to record the raw horror of a war that devours without distinction. Civilians, including doctors risking their lives in searches for supplies in pharmacies under crossfire, stumble upon infiltrators like a German who had lived in Poland for 12 years, caught with a miniature transmitter, dispatched with compliments to the Hindenburg after brief formalities. The dry crack of shots echoing like a grim verdict in dark basements. The metallic taste of bile rising in the mouths of paralyzed witnesses weighed down by desperate vengeance. To the north, in Danzig, the free city separated from Germany by the Treaty of Versailles, Adolf Hitler enters triumphantly, escorted by a hysterical crowd that cheers him with hoarse shouts and waving flags like waves of blind fervor. The air thick with dust kicked up by marching boots and the mingled smell of beer and collective sweat. While the Nazi leader, in an inflammatory speech at the Artushof, invokes Almighty God, who has now blessed our arms, vowing that Poland will never rise again in the form of the Treaty of Versailles, guaranteed not only by Germany, but by cooperation with Soviet Russia. A perfidy the British condemn, but that echoes like a cruel, ironic thunder. In veiled tones, he threatens France and Great Britain. The moment may come very soon when we use a weapon that cannot be used against us. Words hanging in the air like toxic mist, making skin crawl with the foreboding of greater horrors. While the Deputy Chief of the Army General Staff, Rudolf Schmundt, whispers to a recent companion, "It was like this everywhere in the Rhineland, in Vienna, in the Sudetenland, and in Memel, and you still doubt the Führer's mission?" From Danzig, Hitler heads to a hotel in Sopot, a seaside resort now the stage for dark conspiracies, where, in a stuffy suite with heavy curtains filtering the weak Baltic light, he presents to his personal physician, Karl Brandt, Chancellery Chief Philip Buhler, and Reich medical officers Chief Leonardo Conti. His plan to exterminate the insane within Germany to safeguard Germanic blood purity. Dating his order to September 1st, he delegates to them full responsibility to grant powers to doctors who will give mercy death to the incurables after the most careful assessment of their condition. The debate turning not on ethics but on the quickest and least painful method: injections, starvation, or gas. While Conti raises scientific doubts on eugenics, ignored amid the smell of cigars and sealed paper, sealing the fate of tens of thousands. The operational center emerges at Tiergartenstrasse 4, christened T4, under 37-year-old psychiatrist Werner Hade, party member since 1933, who begins screening asylums, prioritizing children and newborns at institutions like Gurden near Brandenburg, where a special psychiatric department for children receives infants from across Germany to put to sleep as quickly as possible, avoiding maternal bonds. Muffled cries echoing in cold corridors, the air heavy with disinfectant and profaned innocence. Meanwhile, in occupied Poland, the SS Special Task Force advances its extermination of Jews in newly conquered cities and villages, with Einsatzgruppen executing security measures that leave streets stained with fresh blood. The stench of bodies in mass graves mingling with upturned earth. Civilians feeling paralyzing terror at the sound of heavy boots approaching at night. Jewish families dragged from warm homes into the merciless cold of initial deportations under the pretext of cleansing. While regular army troops murmur outrage at this courage against the defenseless. A malaise simmering like a pot about to boil over, foreshadowing crises in the Nazi high command. On the Western Front, the first British troops of British Expeditionary Force Corps land in France, feet touching foreign soil under a cloudy sky, but with no plans for offensive action. The front remaining defensive and static like a sleeping giant, leaving the Poles alone in the vortex of destruction. The distant echo of speeches in Danzig sounding like bitter mockery, while diplomats in London and Paris debate furiously, but offer only empty declarations that reach Polish ears like cold whispers in the wind. Global reactions filter in like mist. In Berlin, the nasal voice of William Joyce, the future Lord Haw-Haw, echoed on British radio the previous evening, prophesying defeat. But on the 19th, the focus remains on Poland, where Sachsenhausen camp reveals the Nazi face in the brutal beating of Lothar Erdmann, a pre-1933 journalist who protested mistreatment, his screams echoing in damp cells until internal injuries claimed him. The smell of blood and sweat soaking concrete walls. A visceral reminder that war devours not just borders, but souls. As the sun sets over smoking ruins, the uncertainty of tomorrow looms like an elongated shadow. A price exacted on every sense: the ground's tremor, the burn in the lungs, the weight on the chest. While the Polish nation, wounded to its core, clings to the stubbornness of resistance, and the world watches, paralyzed, the macabre dance of ambitions sowing seeds of genocide. To not miss the next day, subscribe, like, and comment.